How's it going, everybody? Today we are going to switch gears a little bit and focus in on this gimbal housing on the original Volvo Penta here. As we're getting closer to prepping this thing to install back in the boat, it's been a few months since we've had this out, and we're kind of to that point now where we're going to inspect the various components on this to make sure it's good enough to install back in versus needing to fix it while it's already in the boat. One being this trim center here. You've seen on prior videos where pulling this hairpin out is next to impossible when installed in the boat. So we're going to do a good look through here to make sure everything is good. Another quick tip is when you're doing this process, make sure you set your hairpin left and right, because if it is facing upwards you won't be able to get it out, but when you do pop it out you won't be able to put it back in while it's in the boat. So that's just kind of common knowledge. I've yet to see someone be able to do it while it's installed in the boat. So one of the things you want to do with these trim centers is kind of like bend it a little bit. Don't test your luck too much, but just see if it's cracked. If it does crack, you'll need a new trim center. So if you are thinking about doing one, now's a good time to do it. The other thing you want to do is this sleeve that holds the shift. Basically it's a flexible piece of rubber tubing. You want to go through it, take a look at it, see if I can get it to focus. Doesn't look like it's going to do it, but you want to make sure, like the ends, for example. Let's see if we can get it. There we go. You want to make sure the ends are good, and then run it down the length of it here. You'll see if there's any kind of cracks. With this fireproof band that's around it, it's rare that you're going to have any issues. There also is a seal in here. If it's not broken, don't worry about trying to remove it. This is a very difficult piece to get off. But if you don't need to remove it, don't worry about it. And then this water neck piece as well. This is what feeds the water into the motor. You want to check that out. This is not too hard to get to while it's in the boat, but you still want to make sure it's in really good shape, which that checks out. The other piece are going to be these flare lines for your trim center. So you want to run your hands on them and make sure everything is good. As you trace it back down, this one had no issues with it, and I have a whole video series on how to troubleshoot those. So that checks out. The only thing that we really have to worry about here is going to be this corrosion around where they mount, because obviously the old transom was rotten so bad that it kind of spread the corrosion into this gimbal housing. You can see here that's not in very good shape. So you got a few different options on getting that off. You're probably going to want to use a wire wheel and take off all the corrosion you can. It's pretty much found in various ways, with the ones at the bottom in the worst shape. So go ahead and spend some time when you're putting this back together. The OMC that I did once upon a time didn't have this bad of corrosion, so I guess it just kind of depends on where the boat was located as to how bad the corrosion is going to be. So anyway, I'm going to go ahead and get a wire wheel, and I'll go ahead and brush off all this. Don't worry about this seal here. We'll talk about what part number. It's called the Transom Seal. We'll talk about how to install that and some other specifics about it here later on. But for the focus of this video, we're going to go ahead and sand this down. Okay, so after a lot of patience, a lot of wire brushing, to kind of get all the corrosion off. Major pitting right here. You can tell this gimbal housing was exposed to a good amount of corrosion for quite some time. We're definitely going to double check all of the zincs on these once we get everything installed. I'll do a video on those depending on if you're using your boat in salt water, brackish water, or fresh water. We'll talk about which specific types of zincs that you need to be using, because they are not all the same and they are not to be intermixed. So if you do have one type of application you're mainly using your boat in, you definitely want to make sure you're using the appropriate zinc. But like I said, we'll talk about that. There is one underneath here. Actually, you can see it right in there. We'll talk about that in a later episode. But anyway, I went ahead and cleaned this area too, because you're going to need to put an exhaust seal on it. It's not in a very serviceable area. You'll see there's some gasket sealing compound still left in there, so you want to make sure there is nothing blocking your seal here. So go ahead and, if you have any little residual parts like I do there, go ahead and clean that out. Okay, so the next thing we're going to want to do is remove this transom seal. It's very rare that it's going to come off in one piece, so you'll need to spend some time. The joint is right up here, so you'll need to get something to get in there and remove it all. It will take some time. This, I believe it's going to be like neoprene. It's hardened up by most people's time they've got a chance to service it. Interesting enough, you see how flat it is? This replacement piece that we're going to show you is actually completely round. So the idea that this is flat tells us it's been in the boat for quite some time. But yeah, we'll apply a new round seal after everything is said and done. First time I saw it too, I was like, round, this is not the right seal. But yeah, it's supposed to be round. Anyway, okay, let's go ahead and remove it all the way across, because you're going to need to use your wire brush to remove the residual. You'll see there's some gasket sealant compound around it. We're going to need to get that out too. Yeah, take a look here. This is pretty bad. You can see it did not come off in one piece at all, and it's not very soft. Take a look at what the corrosion around the seal. You can see this thing had been leaking for quite some time, especially on the bottom. The bottom was in really bad shape. So you'll need to use a combination of a wire brush down here, maybe some CLR to get some of this calcium buildup out. But yeah, definitely spend some time. I've yet to see someone be able to, unless the boat had been, you know, the transom seal has been replaced within 10 years. This thing is going to be rock hard and tough to get out. So anyway, go ahead and spend some time using your wire brush to get all this area cleaned out next. Okay, so you'll see here I've cleaned out essentially all the different crevices here, to include like in this area. Now there is, and you will find that there is some corrosion that just for whatever reason will not come out. You can use a electric wire wheel made out of brass, the whole 9 yards, to try to get it out, and it just won't. There's just too deep of corrosion. If you do leave behind any gasket sealing compound, which is right there, that's okay, because that is actually what we're putting right back in it, so it's not the worst thing to have in there. But if you have any leftover pieces of the neoprene, you want to try to get that out like you have up there. But otherwise, if you look in this area here, you can see pretty much got it all cleaned out. You'll notice there's still a little bit of residual corrosion here. I'll probably knock that off as well, just to make sure everything looks good. But I also hit this area with some general purpose cleaner, just to kind of clean up any oil and whatnot. Okay, much better. You want to try to get it as clean as you can throughout. I know this part is going to be kind of tedious. You'll spend a good hour or so just trying to get all the leftover neoprene out of there. It's very obnoxious. The other thing you got here is you have obviously the coating that this gimbal housing came with, and that coating is essentially gone right here. So they make a few different types of boat primers. So in this area right here, you can use some aluminum topside paint. It has the I believe it's anti-chromate type paint that you want to use on this, but it's Total Boat makes some. It's basically a topside paint that's designed to be coated over aluminum. The other item on the agenda here before we do any of that topside paint is, you notice how I cleaned off the side. It previously had marine adhesive on it. You can see a little bit right there. Fortunately, there's no easy way. Actually, that's just a a reflection off of the chrome because the outer coating is missing. Let me show you the other side. Okay, so you can see right here we've got some of that marine adhesive. I just use a little wire brush, just whatever the minimum amount of effort is to get that adhesive off. I wish there was something out there that would be able to soften it, but I've yet to find anything. The marine adhesive is pretty strong. So I'll do this for a little bit, just like you saw on the other side. Just enough where it doesn't wear down the surface too much to kind of clean this up. And then what I'll do afterwards, if I decide, I'll go ahead and recoat this while it's installed on the boat, just to kind of give it all a nice little look. But that's probably going to be later on down the road, more of the aesthetics piece, if you would. You can see a little bit elbow grease. It does kind of come off here. You could try to use a razor blade. I did do that to get the larger pieces off. It does work. It's just the problem is you're left with these little white specks, which would drive me nuts. So that's going to be the whole basis here. Go ahead and do that throughout the bottom if you have the same kind of problem that I do here. Voila, all the way done. It does kind of dull out the finish a little bit, and it's not that big of a deal because it's not 100% noticeable, but we will clean it up later on when we get some more time. As we switch gears and we look at the front, you're going to notice the other part up here where the water inlet is. Number one, pull your old gasket seal off. Save that because you're going to need to compare that to your replacement seal. And same thing here, you got a lot of corrosion. You can use CRL to get in here and clean it up, but this is going to be your chance since you have the stern drive removed. Also, you want to get in here and check your bellows. I've got a pretty good tutorial video, so if you've got questions on how to check these, I'll send you the link for that. This one had an issue where the seal was leaking for the stern drive in the upper unit, and you can see it was actually leaking gear oil in here. So I put those rags in there to kind of help absorb some of that oil. So I'm going to go in there and clean that out. Obviously the bellows are working pretty good because the oil is still in there. Okay, so we've essentially cleaned out everything here. CRL around this area, got just about all the corrosion out. Make sure you get any kind of excess seal out of this surface here. Make sure it's nice and clean. I went in there and cleaned out these bellows. I still got a little bit of oil left in there, but I'll spend some more time cleaning that out to make sure it is oil free. On the next episode, we're going to go ahead and remove the gimbal bearing and the seal. I'll show you how to do that. I've got numerous videos that go over that process, but I'm going to show you for this one specifically, just because it's a little bit more unique, I guess, somewhat. Mostly because it's out of the boat, but it makes it a little bit easier for me to show you all how to do it when it's out of the boat anyway, because I can show you what it's supposed to look like from the rear perspective. So anyway, hope you liked the video. As always, hit that subscribe button if you're not already subscribed to my channel. Like the video if you thought it was helpful, and I will catch you on the next episode. Have a good one, everybody. Take it easy.